Good evening, everyone. Tonight is September 27th, 2023 at 6:02 p.m. And I'd like to call to order the City of Columbus City Council meeting. We'll begin at the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would someone make a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda for tonight?
This is Janet. I move to approve consent agenda items number 3 through 6. I did submit some edits to Connor for the 8:23 minutes. They were not changing any meanings, so I think we can go ahead with the approval. I'm seeing a nod over there, so you agree? Okay.
This is Sue. I'll second.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Jesse, aye. Is there anyone who would like to speak at the public open forum? There's no one in the chambers. Anyone online who would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Planning Commission report. And there's no report since it was a joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting.
I did make some notes if anybody wants to. I mean, I know everybody was there, but Rob wasn't there, I don't think.
Okay, go ahead, Sue.
So we had a non-binding concept plan review for our Paw Wellness Center. Elizabeth Gigler came in and gave a presentation on the proposed animal wellness center for rescued pets, and that's on Feller Street, leasing property from the Mackenzies. It's a nonprofit, currently located in Blaine. Services include vaccines, spay, neuter, lab tests, x-rays, and physical therapy. They typically perform services on dogs and cats, but occasionally perform services on other animals like rabbits. It was discussed that this business would be licensed by the state and not the city. So that was one of the questions that came up. And it was discussed that this highway commercial zoned area does not include veterinary services. So if we were going to allow it, there would have to be a text amendment to the ordinance. And Dean had said that, you know, this is listed in almost every other area except for this one, and he didn't see any concerns with that. So the council members did not see any red flags that would hinder moving forward, and the majority were in favor of letting them move forward with the process. Any questions?
No, but thank you, Sue. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. The other topic we talked about was the residential zone business ordinance, and Megan gave a presentation. There's just a couple things that I wanted to touch on, and I don't know if anybody had any questions, but there was, she made a recommendation which comes in a 3-phased approach. The first one being redefine the home occupation definition. Second is sunset residential zone business IUP. And the third is to use specific analysis of the rural residential district to either create new residential districts in which more intense use would be allowed, or create IUPs for specific uses throughout the district. There was a whole bunch of other discussion, but mainly we kind of came to a consensus for the amendments on the following points, and it was only members of the family residing on the property can work in the home occupation. Less than 50% of accessory structure can be used for the home occupation. The home occupation must take place entirely inside. There needs to be more refinement around building codes. later start times for weekends. The limited storage of commercial vehicles outside is allowed, but reducing the allowed amount of parking spaces from 4 to 2. So that was kind of the gist of it. Any questions? And there was a motion to call for the public hearing. And that will take place on October 18th, I believe. So that was all I had for that. And also, Rob, I would just wanted to mention that I think that was my last liaison so that ended in September, so I believe you take over in October.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
It's actually Mr. Mayor Priner that would be the next liaison.
Well, what?
Mayor Priner is our next liaison. He takes the fourth quarter.
Oh, Rob, did you hear that? The mayor is going to be the liaison.
I heard that. Thank you.
Okay.
Rob will get first dibs for 2024.
Okay.
October, November,
All right.
December, right? Got it. All right, any other questions or anything? And hearing none, we'll move on to the engineer report. Thurnbeck Development Driveway Memo, and that's pages 1 and 2 of our packet tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Yes, in regards to my memo in regards to the driveway aprons, this is in Thurnbeck Preserve 1, 2, and 3. We have a number of those driveway aprons, and the apron is defined as that segment of the driveway between the edge of the roadway and the right-of-way. And so it's essentially that portion of the driveway that's in the public right-of-way. City ordinance requires that that apron essentially match what the street pavement is. And so we have bituminous paved roadways in Thurnbeck Preserve. And so those aprons should be either bituminous or upgraded to concrete. So we have, at last count, 1 apron in Thurnbeck 1, 13 and 2, and 1 and 3 that are all gravel at this point. So the question is how we can bring those aprons back into compliance. And we discussed this at our last staff meeting, and kind of came up with some options. Option 1 being is that we would basically just send a notification to each of those property owners, letting them know that they're out of compliance and giving them a time frame to bring that back into compliance by essentially paving their aprons. The second option would be to basically take it on as a city-ran project and put it out for bids, do an assessment process following Statute 429, put it out for bids, award the bids, and then pave those aprons and assess those property owners for that work. Or we could do nothing and just let it go. Our recommendation, or my recommendation, is to go with option 1, notify the property owners and give them a timeline. My suggestion was I think essentially the end of the year next year, or September 30th of 24, to bring those back into compliance. We'd do a new count. I think there's probably been a few of those that have already been corrected already as people pave their driveways. I'm assuming that most of those individuals have a plan to pave their driveways. I don't know what their time frame would be, but maybe this would kind of accelerate the process. So, but it's whatever direction the council wants to give in terms of taking care of this. So,
All right, council, any questions?
I've got a question. Kevin, on option number 2, that estimate of 20,000, ballpark estimate, is that 20,000 for all of them or each place?
not each. That'd be the total for all of those.
So it'd probably be, if a contractor came in there, he'd rather do them all than come
Correct.
one day and.
Yep, and then we'd have to go through that whole public hearing process and assessment requirement, or the steps in that assessment process. And then when you're all done, you assess those property owners, and the council gets to set, you know, the time for those individuals to pay back that assessment, so.
I have a question. So when I read this in my packet, I took a drive down Crossways in Furman, and there's a whole bunch of driveways in the exact same situation. They don't have aprons, they're gravel, and it's a paved road. So I think we need to think about, if we are going to enforce this ordinance, I think we need to enforce it throughout the city equally, or decide that it's not as big a problem and we don't do anything about it. But to just enforce it in Thurnbeck, I'd have a real problem with that.
Yeah, and one of the unfortunate things is that this being a new development, you know, we didn't put checks in place to make sure that was taken care of as part of the requirements of the development. We'll be a little bit more stringent in moving forward. This just being a new development, you know, it'd be nice to bring those into compliance, given it's a brand new pavement on the roadway. But again, we'll defer to whatever direction you want to go with this. So.
One other thought I had, which is an option that isn't presented here, is to just treat it like any compliance issue. And you know, it might be something that Sean can go and talk to them. You can actually do a survey across the city of all the driveways that don't meet that. And I mean, it could be done uniformly then. And you know, he could talk to them about I don't remember the name of the document, but the compliance agreement. So basically, if they're going to pave their driveway in a year and a half or something, maybe that's fine. And that way, we're not just sending out a letter out of the blue saying, hey, you're out of compliance with this ordinance, and, you know, getting people all riled up.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, and in regards to, you know, those driveways that you talked about on Crossways, I don't know when this ordinance was put in place and if those driveways would have been in compliance at that time, and since the ordinance is.
Well, you know, that used to be a gravel road, and then it was paved, and I know it's on the schedule at some point, at least the Crossways part of it, to be fixed. So I mean, I only drove down one road. I don't know how often this happens in other parts of the city, but I just am concerned about enforcing a ordinance unequally across the city.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I was going to comment in a similar vein to the engineers. Any driveway that was constructed before this ordinance was enacted is legally non-conforming, and so there isn't an actual legal obligation for them to come into conformance, except if they should redevelop or something. This is really intended to be a development standard, and you know, it's something that developers should have done. And I think, as Kevin said, we didn't have a check in place to make sure that happened. And so we're essentially trying to bring that back as part of a development standard in this subdivision because it was missed. And I certainly understand your comment that if there are other places where it should have been done by the development standards, then they would be in a similarly situated position. Mm-hmm. But there are probably many driveways that were constructed as part of a road project before the development standard was put in place, and not as part of a subdivision.
Yep, so your road was a shape and pave, and when we had the neighborhood meeting and when we set the standards, the standard was we would match your existing driveway. And so if you had a cement driveway, we matched the cement apron. If you had a blacktop one, we matched blacktop, and if you had gravel, we matched gravel. And that was part of the project.
I didn't hear the first part of what you said.
So that was a shape and pave project, which means the road bed was in place. And when we do shape and pave, we just match what is existing there today. So if you had a blacktop apron, you would have gotten a blacktop apron from that project. But if you had a gravel driveway, it would have been gravel.
Do we know when the ordinance was put in place?
I'd have to look. I don't know.
I just think we should just be consistent, that's all. I mean, yes, I understand that it should have been part of the developer's agreement and it wasn't, but at minimum, I would rather, even if the decision is to just focus on that development, I would rather have it be handled like any compliance issue, where Sean would go and talk to them rather than sending a letter out of the blue. I think that's likely going to backfire. Because I agree with you, I suspect most of those people plan to pave or concrete their driveway. It's a timing issue probably, so.
And that's why I did copy Sean on this memo, thinking that it is a code compliance issue. So how you want to handle that, I guess, is, that's why we're talking about it, I guess. So.
My only question is how, and it might have said in here, is there an issue with the snow plowing and that? Is it creating an issue, or what brought this to our attention?
I don't really know what brought it to our attention, but the issue is driveways that are gravel, that gravel rolls out onto the road, and then ultimately we end up, having to clean that or not. I mean, doesn't mean that we always do. But the real crutch of the problem is they're gonna end up with rutting at the end of their driveway where the gravel meets the asphalt. And at some point, there will be a pothole there that will ultimately move out into the driving lane. So with no apron there, the edge of the road is the road. And the object of the apron is, if there's any degrading of the apron, it's off of the driving surface and not, you know what I mean? So in their driveway, not on the roadway.
Yep, I know, because we have rutting where we got our road paved and it goes bloop. I don't think we have an apron.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my disappointment, frankly, is that we couldn't tag the developer with this, because this is really the developer's responsibility. Absolutely, we should have called it out before the project was closed. But, if I'm a landowner and I'm a house owner, I'm going to have the reaction that Councilmember Hegland is suggesting, that, well, what do you mean this wasn't done? And, so maybe I'm just throwing out option number 4 or 5 or whatever it is. Maybe there's a participation by the city, to make it easy. I don't know if it's half or some amount, but, then if it's, very easy assessment project, we just do it. Maybe it's half the city, half, because it's something we didn't catch. And, if I'm a homeowner, that's going to sound a lot more favorable than just, hey, you're out of compliance, too bad, the developer got away from us. And because it's going to save our road. It's going to save our road if this gets done uniformly all at once, make it easy for them. I'm just going to throw that option out, because if I'm putting myself in the homeowner's shoes, for $1,000 assessed, on my property, we can get this thing fixed up and it's not going to create potholes. Just something to think about. I usually don't jump in on that, but that seemed kind of like an easy one to throw out.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So just a little background. We met with the developer because initially the letter went to the developer and said, you forgot this part, and we met with him. And he said he gave each property owner a choice. They could have a blacktop driveway or a gravel driveway. So the people who got blacktop driveway got charged for the blacktop driveway, and the people that got charged, that only got a gravel driveway. So the developer said that he didn't collect the money in order to put the apron in, because the people who built the house chose a different option. They chose to have a gravel driveway.
I just wonder if the people who chose the gravel driveway chose it because they really want to have a concrete driveway. And that way, a year from now or 2 years from now, or whenever it makes sense for them financially, they'll put in a concrete driveway, which then makes me wonder about the city offering to do that, because if I have a concrete driveway, I don't want asphalt at the end of it. I want it to be concrete to the road. So again, I think, and I also feel like that's, we're doing it in there, but we're not doing it anywhere else. When, if it's a problem for the road, it's a problem for the road everywhere, right? It's a problem for the road on my street, on your street, on your street. So I think we should just decide, like, if it's really a problem, what should the solution be? And if we have an ordinance and people are not under the legal nonconforming, then I think, you could choose to have Sean address it in the same way that we would address any noncompliance. Or if it's not, if it's going to take 10 years for it to be a problem, maybe we just don't worry about it. Because probably in 10 years, all those driveways are going to be paved or concreted. I mean, those are expensive homes. I doubt that many of them are going to want gravel driveways because they want gravel driveways. It's not really that kind of neighborhood.
How difficult would it be to identify all the other areas that are not non-compliant or that came in after the ordinance?
I could probably count all the driveways in a week. But again, at that point, I mean, we'd have to look up every property to see when they built and when the ordinance was in place to try to identify before or after. That would be a bit of work, I think.
I think it's a subdivision standard, and we would look at the subdivisions that have been approved since the ordinance amendment.
Okay.
And then you could do a drive-by just in those subdivisions. My view is it doesn't, I'll read it, but I don't think it applies to the shape and pave in a neighborhood. It applies to, the purpose of it is to make sure that developers, not home buyers, are putting in the apron. And so it would be subdivisions approved since the ordinance went into effect.
Rob has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to touch on that, in the fact that, the homeowner wasn't informed and the developer wasn't informed. So I feel like it's our responsibility if we want to force it, because we did not notify them, whether that was a slip of the engineer or the attorney. I feel like it's our fault. And now we're going to force that homeowner with a financial burden that they didn't expect. And to Janet's point, maybe they are putting in concrete, maybe not, but I do get Jim's point on the erosion. That is a big issue. But I guess I just wanted to share that.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have an issue here because it's the subdivision or whatever. We should address that instead of taking on the whole city. Get that out of the way, and because it's so current. I think Thurnbeck was built in the last 5 years or something like that, so that road's new, and try and save what we can save on it and worry about the rest later. And like Rob, somebody had to know, even a builder, everybody would know you put an apron in somewhere. I mean, you just don't. If you build roads, it's just common sense. You have something up to hold the road in, whether it's like asphalt on the side or whatever. But
I think the reality of it is, though, a developer is going to skate where they can skate to save money. And if it's not in the contract or something with the city, they're not going to do it,
Well, I can't talk for everybody, but no, I'm talking about the developer. He should have, it's just kind of common sense. You just don't drop the road. But if he did what you said, because I drove through there today and I see some that are asphalted all the way up. And the contractor knew he had to go all the way up. He didn't stop and say, let's put gravel in, But I do agree, if the city made a mistake, they should fund some of it. And I don't know, I have to disagree with you on this one, Janet. I don't know if it's Sean's job to go knock on a door and say, hey, this is out there. I think we should let him write a letter that explains to him what happened. The city dropped the ball. This road in front's going to fall apart. There's going to be a pothole. We want to cure the problem and get on with it. admit our fault, then
I would be surprised if we write a letter saying the city dropped the ball.
We won't.
That's right. And that's why I think it will not be received. It won't be written in that way.
well, I'll tell you, if somebody come knocking on my door and told me that, I'd say, fine, sue me, and walk away. I wouldn't give them the time of day. I'd say, that road's been like that for 5 years, and now all of a sudden, you're coming up and asking me to fix it? Or maybe he could turn around, or she could turn around and confront, well, everybody can sue anybody, but couldn't they go against the contractor?
Well, the non-compliance is the contractor's responsibility. The fact is, we didn't enforce it as a city. That happens, right? But the non-compliance is the contractor's, which is my point, that I wish that we could hold the contractor responsible, but for $20,000, we'd spend 50 to get 20. So that's why I threw out the fourth option of just making it easy. Frankly, I think a fair amount of homeowners would think, for $1,000 assessed over some period, it's almost negligible. But that's just an option. I mean, I also think you could let it go and see what happens, and see if, as Councilmember Hegland says, people put in driveways and finish their driveways. So, that's why you get to make the the tough decisions.
I'm leaning more in favor of the doing nothing. It just seems too complicated. And I mean, unless you tell me that the road will fall apart in a year or two, I mean, the road that I'm thinking of hasn't shown any problems with those gravel driveways. And whether it's a shave and pave or something else, it's an integrity problem on the road, and it hasn't really presented. I mean, I know that there's parts of the road that are falling apart, but it isn't because of a gravel driveway meeting it.
You talk about roads, and we've had this conversation 1,000 times, and we'll probably have it 1,000 more. Asphalt degrades as it gets older. It degrades with traffic, it degrades with heat, and it degrades with cold. We don't know if it's gonna be cold. We don't know how hot it's gonna be. We don't know how much traffic there's gonna be. So to say that it's gonna take 5 years before we see a pothole, that's an answer that I can't give you. So it could never happen, or it could happen next spring. So, I mean, if we wait, I mean, time will tell, but at this point, I mean, there's no answer that I could give you that says it's gonna be 4.5 years and we're gonna see potholes, because it doesn't work that way.
Maybe there's a way to write a letter to them that explains that if you don't keep your gravel up against the abutment of the road or whatever, there's a possibility of potholes occurring and damage happening to the road. Just advise them. Because I've seen my driveways, all asphalt, it's about 800 feet of it, and wherever I didn't have the ground up against it, it broke off, and I had to have it repaired.
So what is our recommendation? Let it ride?
Well, I'm wondering, can we come back next week with the option 4 and with the city paying part of it? And then with how much would the assessment be to each household? Like, say if we did split it and it was 10,000 and it ended up for each household have to pay $25 a month for 10 years or whatever the assessment time is.
We would also, just for information, confirm when the requirement went in, just for council's satisfaction.
I have one other question for Bill. I thought that if we assessed property that you had to meet some sort of test that the improvement added that much value to the property, would we be in a position to say, we're assessing you $1,000 and that apron added $1,000 of value to your property, or would that be a shaky stance to take?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I don't think we'd have a problem, particularly with the fourth option where the city's participating, because it ends up being a nominal cost. And, I hate to be this crass, but the cost to challenge a $1,000 assessment at that point, even if all the property owners went in together, it wouldn't make sense. So it would definitely hold, just because, you know, you're looking at a pretty nominal cost, and if there's a city share, it even makes a stronger argument for the assessment holding.
Then I would also suggest that if we do go down that route, that for those property owners who don't want asphalt, are planning to put in concrete, that they would just be able to get a contribution towards that, rather than, you know, I'm assuming what you're suggesting is
We're
that
not get assessed.
well, I mean, if you assess them, then we're taking on the project, right? So if they don't want an asphalt apron, because 2 years from now or a year from now, they plan to put in concrete, how does that work?
We would have a very simple compliance agreement then, that they have 2 years to put in their
Okay,
concrete.
all right.
Yep. And the penalty would be then they put in the apron if they don't put in the concrete. So we could deal with the one-off situation, I think, fairly easily. It'd be a 2-page agreement.
I still would vote for do nothing. It seems
we
like
can
it's getting
still-
more
we can still-
complicated the more we talk about it.
We can vote to do nothing next week or
Yeah,
whenever.
no, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Get more information.
Hey, this is Rob. I just had a comment on this. And maybe the Jim, is there availability to use like crushed asphalt? Because I know once you drive over that quite a bit of times, it packs down like close to a bituminous, you know, and would help with that eroding if we wanted to do something to, you know, satisfy both needs of the homeowner and the city. Is that a possibility?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is Kevin, council member. I mean, yeah, the crushed asphalt sometimes holds better together, but not always. It's my opinion that is very similar to a Class 5 material and is basically specified as a Class 5 material. So I don't see that as a real viable option, or an option that I would necessarily recommend.
All right, thank you. I was just trying to find a a reasonable solution at a reasonable price, I guess, to satisfy both the city and the homeowner.
Do you need direction,
We're just going to lay it over till the next meeting.
but you're going to
Yeah.
come back with more information?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
But what information are we asking for specifically?
When the ordinance went into effect was one thing, right? And,
What an assessment would look like.
Yeah, another option 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come back with the option that looks in more detail as far as individual cost and
And a city participation of some sort.
yeah. Next item is basically just more for your information. Maybe to back up a little bit. After our discussion in regards to our Anoka County Ditch 102232, I was invited to a meeting with Chris Otterness. He's the Rice Creek's engineer. He's with Houston Engineering. And we met with the DNR staff to basically talk about what the DNR would require if the watershed district moved ahead with a repair project that would take the ditch down to what is being referred to as alternative 4. And this would take the ditch, basically clean the ditch bottom and relay the culverts across Pine Street, the 137th Avenue driveway and Jodrell down to what's called a as constructed and subsequently improved condition, the ASIC profile. And that ASIC profile was determined by Houston Engineering. It was at some point approved by the Watershed District. And it establishes an improved profile for the ditch. But with that, when you're lowering culverts at these road crossings, it may potentially have an impact on the wetlands, and there's a couple of public waters north of 137th and east of Jodrell. And so the DNR, so we met with the DNR to talk about this project. Houston Engineering, Mr. Otterness provided the DNR some additional information on what was being proposed. And the DNR, this was the area hydrologist, a couple of hydrologists with the DNR, the area hydrologist and another staff hydrologist. They took it to what they call their drainage review panel, which is basically some representatives. I think it's basically some other hydrologists throughout the state where they evaluate these kinds of questions and they determine what's going to be required in order for a potential applicant to do the project. And the basic question is do you need a public waters permit to do the proposed work? Or in this particular instance, they came back with a response that says you need a letter of permission, which I'm not sure in essence what the basic requirements or differences are between a letter of permission or a public waters permit, but that was their determination. And basically what they're saying is that they didn't say you couldn't lower Pine Street and Jodrell culverts. They did say that if you, they would like not to see the district lower the culvert at 137th because that essentially is the control for their public waters, public water that's north of 137th. And if they did lower 137th, they were going to be obligated to demonstrate no impact to this public water or minimize or mitigate the consequences of lowering that culvert. So basically what it's saying is that it's going to make it very difficult. It's going to make a very difficult permitting process to lower the culvert at 137th. So that's being taken under advisement right now, as I understand, by the district and their engineer. And there will probably be some future discussion at either a workshop or another board meeting. And we'll just be kept in the loop on that. And so at this point, I have nothing further to report other than to say the DNR is going to make it difficult for us, or difficult for the district to move ahead with a repair project that alters the channel bottom. So.
Mr. Mayor and council members, if you look in your additions, just as a segue to this same project, we sent a letter to Rice Creek Watershed District 2 weeks ago in reference to this project, indicating that what they're really, in the minutes, what they had projected as on board meant. And this was the response to that letter. And I haven't had a chance to look at the date of the minutes that Nick is referring to in the first paragraph. But in the last paragraph, he does allude that there would be some cost share because he said, and in the past, we've done cost share projects through grants where we apply for a grant and it's our contribution, but we do have to apply for it and someone has to draft the grant. And that's what he's alluding to on the last paragraph. We did a stormwater project in the Freeway District where it was a collaborative project, but we had to apply for the grant and get awarded the grant and before we would do the project. So it appears that they are looking at a cost share if this is going to move forward.
Were you able to ask, I think think at our last meeting, you were going to send an email to Nick and ask if there was a date or they had scheduled a discussion on this topic, so that we could be sure you're there. Do we know, have we gotten a response to that email?
So Kevin had a follow-up email from Nick indicating that it would be at a future workshop. He didn't know when the future workshop would be, and that he would keep us in the loop.
I think when we've talked about this before too, Elizabeth, you'd mentioned that maybe it would be helpful to actually try to meet with the DNR and talk to them. I don't know if you still feel that way, but at the time, I think we were feeling uncomfortable that Rice Creek was meeting with them, and we were still, and we weren't being adequately noticed when they were going to discuss it at their meetings. And maybe if everybody just sat down at the table, it would be a better conversation. I mean, I read the letter from the DNR, and, you know, to Kevin's point, they called on 137th, but that's not, I mean, if alternative 4 doesn't fit anymore based on this letter, right? So now I'm not sure what the alternative would be. And we were never, you know, when we had the conference call, the Teams meeting where Mayor Priner and myself was on there, I mean, we made it clear that we didn't want to just put a Band-Aid on the problem, and we weren't interested in cost sharing for a project that was not going to address it wasn't going to provide a solution. And part of what they, you know, reasonably said is, well, we need to talk to the DNR before we can discuss that any further. So I feel like, I mean, I get that they've talked to the DNR now, but I'm just worried that we're not going to be at the table because that's just been the recent history. And there is, you know, I'm really comfortable with you being involved in representing us from an engineering standpoint, but there's also a political standpoint to this, and that's the part that doesn't get addressed if we aren't involved.
So, Mayor and council members, I would be uncomfortable leapfrogging the Rice Creek Watershed District on this issue and going straight to the DNR. It is a Rice Creek project. I don't know that we necessarily.
I wasn't suggesting leaving them out. I was suggesting just taking the lead on setting up a meeting, but then we would all be there. Is that still leapfrogging?
Well, I'm not sure what I guess what would be the goal of having another meeting with the DNR? They are aware of what wants to be accomplished with the project. So I guess unless you have a particular goal in mind and what you want to talk to the DNR about, I guess I'm not sure what the meeting would be for.
Well, Elizabeth, I mean, you used the example of the meeting that the city had with the DNR when you ran into roadblocks with Howard Lake. And that, you know, had you not had that meeting, that would have been a project that was dead in the water, and that there was some value in sitting down and kind of explaining and getting everybody on board. Now, I don't know if that, I mean, obviously different people, different times, different projects. I don't know that it might work the same way, but I think that's what you had in mind when you suggested it. And I'm not saying that we should or we shouldn't. That was the last conversation we had with Elizabeth on the topic. So I'm just curious if you're still feeling that way, or if this changes how you're viewing that possibility.
We've run into situations before where, and I want to say that, you know, Columbus works with the DNR on a variety of different projects. We have good relationships with different, you know, segments of the DNR. And in the past, we have sat down, and I can tell you a number of meetings that Bill and I have been at when we've had, you know, difficult roads to go down. It's an option. It's always an option to sit down with them and see where they're at. This one's probably a little bit different as it's not our application, but to your point, Kevin, I don't want to, I know we work with Rice Creek too, so I don't want to go around them either, because that's not what we've done before either. So I'm not sure what we should do next, but I want to know that, everyone to know that we've always worked in partnership, but we've never been, you know what I mean, been trampled. We've always had a seat at the table and made our voice known, because we have so much land in public ownership. There's no other choice but to work together. So in this case, you know what I mean, in reading the letter, I'm not sure what choices, you know what I mean, Kevin, what can we go back or tell Rice Creek? Or, I mean, is there something we can go back and say, this is what we need to do? Or a suggestion saying, DNR, this isn't good enough. This letter isn't good enough. We really need to work together.
Well, and I think, and maybe I'll kind of look to Bill a little bit here too, but in terms of ditch law versus wetland law, I mean, we're talking about essentially sections in the Minnesota state statutes, which is 103E, which is the law that establishes judicial ditches. This ditch was dug in 1898 because of lack of continued maintenance on the ditch. We have public waters or wetlands that have been established. And so now 103G kicks into gear and kind of outweighs 103E. So I don't know how those balance out. You know, the issue of now we have a culvert under a private driveway that's providing the control for public waters. If that culvert either didn't exist or if that ditch had been maintained to the ASIC for 50 years, we wouldn't have an issue, but now this is the case. So, and a little bit of heartburn on my part in that, Columbus is whatever percentage wetlands, and we can't lower a public waters 2 feet in order to try to address private property concerns. It causes me a little heartburn, but we're dealing with a DNR, and so we're trying to play by their rules and trying to play nice, but I don't know, that's kind of a roundabout non-answer, but just kind of expresses some of the frustrations that we deal with, so.
Well, the one thing that was helpful in this letter is that they actually put that in 2016, they changed the high water level.
They established the high water level. I don't know that they raised it. They established the high water mark for those public waters. So, and now all of a sudden that's kind of chiseled in stone, and that's what we're trying to deal with here. So
right, but I think from what the people who know about these things tell me is that they raised it. And that was the time frame that they did it within, and they can do that. I mean, they have the authority to do that. They don't have to hold public hearings. They can just do it. But I wonder, how they consider the downstream effects of doing that, and whether or not it's worth explaining what the problems have been in areas of our city. That could be a contributing factor to. Not the only factor, obviously. There's multiple things that I think are in play here, but I don't know. I mean, I like to think that, different agencies are respectful of each other and are willing to sit down and talk about it, and I'm not trying to edge anybody out, but I also feel like, we all come at it with our own set of priorities, and I don't necessarily expect Rice Creek to represent the city's priorities when they're talking to the DNR.
Well, and one thing too is that the DNR didn't say anything about not being able to lower Pine Street and Jodrell. So it's almost like, well, maybe we should do those while they're okay with that before they rule differently, and then we'll deal with 137th on a different different plane, but whether that makes sense or not, I don't know. Obviously, that all comes at a cost, and if you can't get 137th lowered, it's almost a moot point because that really controls almost the whole shebang, so that and Pine Street, so.
Mr. Mayor and Council, since Kevin offered my insights, I don't have any with regard to the statutes without looking at them, but perhaps the simplest thing to do is, given the DNR's communication, is for the city to ask, is there anything we can do to help on this issue? And then we've offered to be a part of the solution without kind of nosing out the, any party. And that, that's an opportunity for Rice Creek to say, we've got this, here's how we're going to respond, or we don't have it, or, I understand what the priority is for the city, to make sure that we do as much as we can to move the water, right? But, if the district says our hands are tied, then maybe their hands are tied. But by having a unilateral conversation with the district, it's more of that partnership that Elizabeth's talking about, working together rather than saying, we got to have a meeting, or we have an answer, or we, you know what I mean? Without coming with an answer, we're just calling a meeting. But if we go to the district and say, hey, what can we do to help? Is there something that you're working on? How are you going to respond to this? Do you think we can get 137th included, or is it deferred? Then it's more of just information gathering. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. It's a matter of, would you want me to do that reach out?
Yep,
Elizabeth?
I think that would be good.
Well, I think they've made it clear what we can do. We can pay 50% of whatever they come up with. I mean, they have not included us in meetings when we've asked to be included in meetings. I mean, that is a fact. You've made it really clear when you wanted to be included in meetings. I've made it clear, and they schedule these and they don't let anybody know that they're on the agenda. So it feels to me like they're sending a pretty clear message that this is their problem and they'll send us a bill when they figure it out. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. That's one way of doing business, but they can't even tell us that the solution that they're coming up with is going to fix the problem.
Well, because they don't have to, they may not. And so, I mean, that's the situation we're in.
And
We can't force ourselves into the room.
I get that, but do we have to pay for something that we're not sure is going to fix the
You
problem?
don't have to pay for anything. I mean, ultimately, if this city says we're not going to be in a cost share, then they have to decide whether they're doing the project without us. I mean, I think that is your, in fact, leverage point.
Okay.
And so, my suggestion, and this is not my expertise, but my suggestion just in dealing with agency to agency is let them run the gauntlet, see what they come up with, and then when they ask you for money, that's your opportunity to say, wait a minute. I'm sensing that without a specific purpose for calling a meeting, I don't know what that's going to accomplish.
Well, I know, Kevin, you were given some additional information in that meeting. I don't know if that helped clarify or if it's like additional information, but you still really can't.
Yeah, and it was helpful, and I have made some notes in terms of what I feel is the issue and what may not be the issue. At this point, I'm not ready to make that public because I still think there's information out there that I may need to gather yet. So.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm glad you're still looking into it because I know you're looking out for the city's interest, and that's what's been kind of lacking in this. I feel like, I'm not saying that the Race Creek doesn't care, but that's not their priority.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about there being, both technical and political positions here, from the standpoint of being, essentially at the staff level, I mean, we have to work with their staff on a regular basis, so we need to maintain those working relationships that are
I get it.
fruitful and productive. If you feel that there is a political solution, they have a board, and reach out to them, decision maker to decision maker, but from my perspective, I really want to maintain that good working relationship with their staff and not develop something where it's a difficult situation to work with, because we have other projects too that we got to work with them on and try to get resolutions on projects, so.
And I'm not suggesting creating a bad working relationship. I just want.
I know you're not. I'm just saying that, you know, from a staff level, I just want to be able to maintain that, so.
I do have one question for Kevin, and I don't know if this is even something that you can answer, but in that paragraph where it says in 2016, they determined the ordinary high water level. If you looked at it to see, would it say in the record, like if they determined it went up or down, or if they just determine it, they don't say what it was before and if it went up or down?
My guess in the way that paragraph is worded is that there wasn't an ordinary high water mark levels established before 2016, that there wasn't an elevation established. That's the way I read it. I could look into that if there was something different beforehand. So.
Yeah, if it's not too much work, I mean, don't spend hours on it, but if there's something that just tells you one way or another, it
no,
might be helpful.
it'd be an easy question for Mr. Gleason in terms of was there a level established before 2016? So I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mayor, attorney's report.
Nothing to report.
What? We need some good news.
Just nice to be here.
After this whooping. Nothing. All right. Mayor and city council members report. Ron, I'll start with you.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
I have something. The Sunrise, there's a memo in your packet, the additional packet, A3 through 4. So I just want to go over that. I wrote this and sent it out to all the city administrators that are part of the JPA for the Sunrise, proposing a potential solution for the stalemate that we've been in with Ham Lake for the last year or more. So without getting into a lot of detail or rehashing all of this stuff, if you look on page A4, you will see a table. And this table shows what the proposed percentage of the budget would be allocated to each of the 4 communities if we used the current allocation methodology, which is scenario 1. You might remember that I have been opposed to using scenario 1 because the way that that was arrived at and the way that it would be updated going forward is using property values as half of the equation, and that makes no sense to me or to 2 of the other communities on an ongoing basis. And Ham Lake has maintained that they don't really have a philosophical preference. They just don't want to pay more. And they're okay with this 4%, but they don't want to pay more than that. So Jamie actually came up with the idea that, well, why don't we just use the percentage in scenario 4, but we won't update it to reflect changes in market value. And that way it addresses my concern and it addresses Ham Lake's concern. And to be perfectly honest, when you go back and look at all the different scenarios that we evaluated, at least for Columbus, you're talking about a 1% change no matter what we use. So the dollar value to us is nominal no matter what we choose. And so I'm okay with that. So the proposal is to accept the scenario 1 percentages on an ongoing basis. It would not be updated. I think it was on every 5-year basis, I think in the past is what they had used before for market value. And the only reason, and we would have a caveat in the JP that said that if any city's boundaries change substantially, that would require revisiting of this, but doesn't propose any sort of potential solution for that. So that's the one thing to consider. The dollar values are here. We've always paid somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000 a year, and this would put us at just a little over $9,000. The other things that were sticking points that we've gotten some resolution, but it was worth restating them because it's been such a long process to make sure that people are still in line with it, is that all 4 communities had at least verbally agreed that they would have at least one elected official, a representative of the board. That's been a problem for Ham Lake. They've not had an elected official, and that's been part of the communication problem. And I think in my discussion with Mayor Kirkham, he's recognized that is a problem. And so he's actually volunteered to be that person and come to our meetings, at least for now. And then going forward, they would assign a council member to do that. The unanimous ratification of the budget on a yearly basis was also a sticking point. We have been held hostage by Ham Lake a couple of different times when they haven't liked the budget, and so then they just don't ratify the budget, and we're all stuck. And if you don't have a budget that gets approved, then you can't operate, right? So we wanted to take that possibility off the table. We hit a compromise that we would not require unanimous ratification unless the budget increase was more than 10% above what had been the annual budget in the approved 10-year plan. So there's a 10-year plan that each community adopts, and there is a budget for each of those 10 years, somewhere around $50,000 total. I think the last 2 years of the current one we're in, it goes up by 10,000 or something because grant money runs out. So we didn't want it to just be tied to the last budget because in those last 2 years, that would have been a problem. It was a planned increase. But everybody seemed to be fine with having this sort of safety net that majority would rule unless the proposed budget was increased by more than 10% of the approved budget in the 10-year plan. We put in place some timelines, so there were no timelines in the current JPA, so they could drag it out for as long as they wanted to. This puts them on a 60-day, puts us all on a 60-day time schedule so that they have to respond within 60 days or it's tacit approval. And then the funding formula is what I had already talked about. So what I would be looking for is a motion to accept these proposed solutions or not. And if we get all 4 communities to accept this, then we can actually instruct the attorney to finalize the amendments for the JPA, and we will be done with it. So,
Would you like to make that, or do you want one of us to?
I certainly can do the first one, and then you can chime in with a second. So unless there's, well, we can talk if there's discussion. So I would move to accept the proposed solutions as outlined in the memo to the Sunrise River WMO member community administrators dated September 18th, 2024 on page A4.
This is Sue, I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, aye.
Can I just make a clarification? Is
Rob,
the-
aye.
Sorry.
And Jesse, aye. All right.
So Janet, you have 2 different dates. One is September 18th and one is September 26th. Is it the same memo or are there 2 different memos?
Oh, yeah, you know, I must not have changed the header on my memo. So it's I will amend the motion to change the date, reference the date of the 9/26/23 memo, not the 9/18 memo, which is what's on the top of A4. I just didn't obviously change the header on my Word document.
I'll second.
Okay.
So the amendment is moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, I.
Janet, I.
Rob, I.
And Jesse, aye.
Thank you for catching that, Elizabeth.
I know there's another memo, that's why I was like, okay, I don't know what the other memo said.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then you want me to make the second one for the budget?
We don't have, oh, we weren't going to do the budget. Well, are you doing this as part of your levy?
Well, I was gonna, I was using the 927, so I was gonna make the levy, $9,050, you know what I mean, for the preliminary levy, because I didn't have anything else to use.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you wanted to do that as part of your discussion for the levy, or it's fine either way. That's fine.
So I move to approve the 2024 Sunrise WMO budget, the Columbus percentage of $9,050, unless we make a change during the levy discussion, using the formula.
I'll second the motion. Is there any other questions or discussion?
I just want to clarify. So this is accepting the budget that would be allocated to us, but the dollar amount in the levy is going to be more than this because you're going to tack on the, so I just want to make that clear to everybody. I don't know what the bottom line is from the levy because you're adding on the cost of the city administration of the permitting processes.
Yep, this is just approving the Sunrise budget, so you can go back to the board and said, we ratified the budget.
Yep.
Our budget adds $10,000 more because we're the LGU, we have more costs. So I added 10,000 to this. So it's $19,050 is the actual levy that I'm proposing.
Okay.
Call for a vote.
Go for it. Yes.
Ron, aye.
Sue, I.
Janet, I.
Rob, I.
Jesse, aye.
Thanks, Janet,
You're
for all
welcome.
that hard work on
How
that.
many years has that been, Janet?
A little over 2.
All right. Rob, do you have anything for reporting tonight?
I do not, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
And the only thing I would mention is that last weekend was a Fall Fest. And congratulations to everybody and thank you, especially to Janet, who spearheaded the whole thing and made it all happen.
No, I
And
didn't make it all happen.
staff
Lots of people made it
and
happen.
Volunteers and public, and the sun shined all day. So it was a good event. Everybody that I've talked to said it was good fun and they were happy to have it back. So get ready for next year. Here we go. All right, Public Works report, Jim.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Public Communications Coordinator.
No report this evening.
What? City Administrator.
I have two things on my list. One is the 2024 budget preliminary levy. And then secondly, it's the time and place where we're going to hold the Truth and Taxation meeting. And then I have a short question for you for Columbus event on October 19th. So Jim, if you can, or Connor, can just hand out a few things. So what's going to be handed around is you have revenues in green, disbursements in yellow, and then there's a summary page for the budget. Last Thursday we met and I took all of the comments and changes that you had talked about. I've updated each of the sections to reflect that, and so we'll start as soon as Connor gets through the handing out everything. We'll start with the summary, so, and then we'll work backwards into the detail. So tonight, I'm not going to work through the capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan we worked through, and I just simply made changes according to the discussion. So the levy dollars haven't changed at all from that discussion. So I want to start off with the proposed 2023 levy for taxes payable for 2024. In looking at the big picture, I'm going to give you the big picture first so you know where we landed. After all the discussion, where did we land? Because most people want to know that and then work backwards. So if we look to the right-hand side of the summary, where we're looking at the blue and purple numbers, well, but that's the bottom line. But looking at the top part, you have the operations fund, and then you have the capital funds, you have bonds, other specific levies, and that's Sunrise, which we just talked about. And then you have the Economic Development Authority operations. The bottom line came in 2022, the levy was $4,233,069. The levy in 2023, as proposed, is $4,233,186. I couldn't plan it this close if I tried, but this is how the numbers came together with all of your input, changing 50-50 around. I mean, just, putting in the different things that we talked about, including making the, and I hadn't seen the numbers for Sunrise because I originally had 19,350. So even that number changed as late as yesterday. So what does that mean to us? So the next page is the tax impact calculator. And I think during the meeting last week, I had put in $4,215,000 because that was just a number that I thought we were going to aim for in looking at the entire big picture. I used the 12% as the average increase for market value. And in this particular case, with a $4,214,136, which is what we came up with, that equates to a tax capacity rate reduction from 45% to 38%. It's a 16% overall tax decrease. And what that means is our levy went up $417. So looking at the lower portion of this, for a homestead medium value property for $445,000, they would have a tax reduction of $126. And if you look down at the lower table, every category shows a decrease based on a 12% increase in market value. If their market value went up 19% or 16%, they're going to have a nominal, it's going to go the other direction. But ultimately, that's how it came out, and that's with, again, all of the capital projects and everything that we put in. There's only one question that I have. It's an $800 question going one way or the other. The $800 is in. So if you take it out, you know what I mean, it will go down, you know what I mean, further. We can do it in the final levy if there's more questions. So as far as the tax impact calculator, we talked about where we wanted to be, and we landed below the 215. The next page is the preliminary tax levy. And this gives the overall projection of the general levy, the GO bonds, which we are required to levy for, the Columbus EDA, and then, of course, we levy on behalf of the Sunrise Water Maintenance Organization, so that is a separate levy. We also have another levy for the HRA EDA. We already passed that resolution, and that was for the $120,000. So again, this is, we have two levies here in Columbus. One is for operating and capital, and the other one is the HRA EDA. The last page is talking about what they call our truth in taxation hearing. And we are required to hold a hearing. It doesn't have to be on a separate night. It can be on your regular meeting night. And historically, we've had it on the first council meeting in December. The dates have to be between November 25th and December 28th. So you have to have it in that time frame, and it has to be held after 6 p.m. or be held after 6 p.m., and the public must be allowed to speak. So it works within our regular meeting. In the past, we've made that recommendation as staff to have it at, in this case, it would be your December 13th meeting. We schedule it for during the meeting, and we sometime after 6, we discuss the budget, and we take input for anyone who's here. The last page is actually what we fill out, meaning staff fills out, and then it will show up on everyone's truth and taxation statement. And it will say when, when the time is. And in this case, if we said that we were going to do it December 13th, we would say at 6 p.m. It does say that we have to tell them whether we're going to do only in person. We have been doing a combined meeting format for a long time. I know I was in a room with several other cities, and several cities said no, they would only hold in person. So that's why the county was being asked us if in fact we were going to do that. I do have to file this by Monday as far as the truth and taxation, so that will be a separate motion that we will establish that date. Questions about the summary or any of the paperwork that I went through? Because I can jump now into the details of where there were some changes and my one question.
Before we move off of this, you plan it for the 13th, Wednesday, December 13th, 6 p.m.
I do. That's what I'm proposing.
So put that in our calendars, everybody. All right.
Excuse me. Okay, so again, disbursements are your yellow sheets, your revenues are your green sheets, and the yellow is the proposed 2024 budget. There were very few changes that I made in the operations as far as numbers goes. There were a few tweaks because I ran some numbers that needed to be run in order to look at staffing needs and some other requirements. But there were no big changes from when we talked. As far as Public Works, there was very few changes. The building department, I did make sure that the entire building department was both on the revenue side and the disbursement side. So I equaled out those numbers, making sure that it balanced. I did take code compliance wages out of contract services and moved it up to admin. So if someone says, geez, why did it go, why did it go up? Well, the 50,000 came out of one category and was brought up to another category, and we already had $20,000 extra in there. Looking at parks, the other funds, Public Works, there wasn't many changes as Jim went through. There wasn't any changes on the 21st. No changes in the Blacktop Fund. We went over the capital improvement plans. And again, this is a fixed number once you go through capital. I added the police, emergency, fire, and fire hall numbers into the system. Under our umbrella in our accounting system, public safety is this big umbrella. They all come, all of these categories come under one heading. So when you see all subtotals and then a total for public safety, that's the way our accounting system works. All of those are combined together. Park fund. Here's where my question is. So I wanted you to be on disbursement page 7 and the park page in revenue 4. This is where the major changes were because you had asked me to do a reallocation of the tower rental. So one of the changes, that I had to take the revenue out of the general fund, out of the emergency fund. So of course, those levies went up because I took the money out. So if you look at the disbursements, you won't necessarily see the revenue. And in ours, because we run on cash, they run separately in our accounting system. So if you look at rents and royalties under the park fund under 150, you'll see the 10,600. That 10,600 represents 50% of the tower rental revenue. And then if you look under the park capital fund, I put the 10,600 because that's the projected revenue stream for 2024. So that was the major change in those two funds. And then that revenue was taken away from the emergency fund and the general fund. Now my question. My question is in the capital fund. Originally in the capital fund, we had a levy of $2,700. In the discussion, we talked about the revenue stream coming in, but nowhere in my notes or anybody else's notes did anyone say to take away the revenue stream that was already coming into the capital fund. So when I looked at it, I was like, okay, so it was $2,700 last year. And when I looked at the cash flow, it didn't cash flow very well. So I increased it to $3,500 because we have an escalator too in there. And so my question to you is whether you wanted to cap it at $2,700 without the escalator, or you wanted the escalator. And if that's the case, what you see before you, it's at $3,500 with continued escalator and in the coming years. I can take it out. I could do whatever you would like. I just, in my notes, I didn't have what you wanted to do with the park capital fund because you already had a levy. You added revenue, but you didn't tell me what you wanted to do with the existing dollars that were allocated for that fund. So if you look in the capital budget, under 403, it's easier to see in that it's easier to see in that budget what I'm referring to.
Are you looking at Schedule C of what you gave us? Okay.
Yes, Schedule C. So looking at Schedule C, originally, we'll look at 2023. The tower rental to this fund was $3,600. I changed it to 10.6. That's what we talked about. The levy last year was $2,707. This year would have been scheduled for $3,500. So that was my question, because that's progressively going across. That's what the schedule was. So when you add 3,500 and 10.6, you get 14,100. So you have an expenditure of 14,100, and on the revenue side, you have 10.6. And so what you would be levying is $3,500.
Elizabeth, this is Janet. So when you and I talked about this yesterday, I think it was, I thought I understood that you had increased the levy amount because you were worried about cash flowing the trail maintenance, the big cost that's scheduled to happen in 2027. But as I was looking at this, part of the cash flow problem is that we've got those two expenses that we keep moving to the next year that I don't think we're ever going to recognize. We're never going to. I can't imagine we are ever going to buy those pieces of equipment and take over maintenance of the park. So if we don't have those dollars in there, it does cash flow.
It does, but no one told me to take them out.
I know,
And
but-
every year, we're like, well, if we don't do this, then we have to buy this, so.
But I think it's creating a false sense of, not having enough money put away for the park maintenance. I mean, that's $60,000 worth of expense that I just can't imagine we are going to realize in my lifetime on this council. And that, so I don't know how everybody else feels, but if you took it out, basically, it's the question of, do you think we'll ever not have a contract to maintain the park? I mean, what we heard from Jim in the past is he doesn't have the staff to do it, and we don't have the equipment to do it, and it's probably less expensive to just hire, to contract it out as we've been doing it. So keeping this, this equipment cost and just keep pushing it down to the next year is creating a false sense of not being able to cash flow the trail, because it looks like we're going to spend $60,000 that we're not really going to spend.
And
So
that's for the John Deere 935 mower and the International Cub lowboy.
Correct.
yep.
It's really we agree with you, but we don't know how it's gonna work, right? So if we spend the money, and then in a year or 2 or 4 or however many years, somebody says, hey, we're not doing the contract anymore, then we don't have that money again, which is why we keep throwing it out there every 2 years when we renew a contract.
No, I get
So,
it.
I mean, it's just kind of that unknown, right?
No, I get it, but I think Elizabeth bumped up the levy amount because she's looking at that 75,000 that's going to hit and saying, oh, we don't have enough put aside, and I'm saying, yes, we do. If we just took that false $60,000 out of there, we do have enough put aside, because I don't think we'll ever really spend that.
I hope not. I mean, I think we have a good plan at the moment, and I think most people like it. And it would be my recommendation that we keep moving forward that way. It's that security that if somebody changes their mind, then we know that we're gonna have to buy that. So we'll have to either do a levy or something in the future. So, I mean, however you wanna work it. I don't know that Elizabeth and I really care one way or the other, but.
So when you say if somebody changes their mind, that means whoever, us or whoever the next council is?
Correct.
And if they did, so if we took this out, we still have the money and we have the funds to do what we're doing today, which is the
contract.
the contract. They would just need to keep doing that, and then they would have to decide, well, if we're not going to do that, then we would have to put money in to pay for a mower.
Correct.
And they probably would
And they
have
would
to
have
put
to-
money in to pay for somebody to do it,
Yeah.
which,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so I just think, we've been happy with the contract services. There's been no appetite for changing that, at least in the almost 5 years I've been on this council. So let's be brave and take these dollars for these 2 pieces of equipment that I doubt that we're ever going to buy, or at least in the near future.
Right. I don't think it would be irresponsible to take it out if we have the funds in to pay, which we do.
And then it doesn't look like we have a cash flow problem. And you can go back to your $2,700 in the levy if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's got an escalator in it. I mean, it just normally, you know what I mean, that's how we put it in, so that was why, I mean, that's why it steadily goes up.
So I guess I'll ask the question then. Do you not want to do the escalator?
We can do the escalator. It's just that she bumped it up above the escalator, I think, to try to solve it.
No, it's just bumped up. The escalator bumped it up. So, you mean, that progression is the escalator.
So,
So we didn't, so the escalator, so next year that, I don't remember the number now, 3,500. Next year that will be plus 4%. Year after that will be plus 4%.
okay, then I misunderstood you, because I thought you were going to put in 2,700.
And 27,100 was last year.
Yeah.
But then we have also increased their tower money, correct?
Yes,
So let's get rid of the escalator, leave it at 2,700. And
that's fine.
they also receive the additional money from the tower,
Yes,
and then take out the extra lawnmowers.
yes.
And that also will help psychologically. Anyone who thinks they want to change it and get rid of the lawnmower guys, they're gonna have to go to the public and levy for $100,000 worth of lawnmowers.
And employees.
So then it's on them, whomever they are.
Whomever they are, yep.
So Elizabeth, so I would move to change the levy for the 403 fund from 3,500 to 2,700.
Yeah,
I'm not going to put the $7
I was just
in,
gonna
and
say,
just
'cause
say
you could-
2,700.
Yeah.
And then to remove the two expenses in the proposed 2025 budget of 35,000 and 25,000.
Is there a second?
This is Sue, I'll second.
Any questions or discussions?
Can I ask one question? So the 2,700, that will just be the levy from here on? So I understand that, right?
Without the escalator, yep.
So next year it'll be 2,700, year after that it'll be 2,700, unless somebody changes it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there is an escalator in the revenue for the tower, so there's gonna, there's a built-in escalator there, so that will go up. So we don't need it in the levy. That's the thought process.
Okay.
Yep,
No, that works.
yep.
I just want to make sure that I understand it right.
I'll call for the vote.
What was the motion again, one more time?
So the motion was to change, do you have your Schedule C in front of you?
Yeah.
So to change the $3,500 that is in the, scheduled for the levy, to change that to 2,700, which is making it flat with last year. And then to remove the $35,000 and the $25,000 expense in the proposed budget for 2025. And what that does is it reduces our levy by whatever, the $800 that Elizabeth.
Yeah, $800.
And then when you look at the cash flowing for the 75, it will cash flow because we don't have that $60,000 worth of expenses that we really don't anticipate realizing.
So it won't go negative, right here.
Yeah. I see what you're talking about. So what are you looking for, Mayor?
There's already been a motion.
We have a
Got a
we have a motion and a second, now we're
And a second, I'll
voting.
call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, aye.
Not in favor of taking the funds out for a possible lawnmowers in the
You might need to say that again, you were kind of garbled. Rob?
He voted nay,
Oh.
basically.
Oh, I couldn't-
Yeah, I voted nay, and on the basis of I want to keep the money in there for possible lawnmowers in the future because we don't know what the future is going to bring.
Yeah, thank you.
As long as we are in this packet, can I ask a question that I was looking through this, and it's not going to change any numbers or anything? I just was observing it today. So it would be on Schedule B. I'm curious why, when I'm looking at the crack filling and gravel and limestone lines, it's 20,000 and 60,000 across the board all the way through 2033. So if we did do an escalator on the levy going up by 4%, why would that number not be going up over the years?
We're doing an escalator on just the asphalt portion of it. So we're calling the 60,000 for gravel limestone as maintenance. and the 20,000 as maintenance, just like every year I do 20,000, unless we're doing a seal coat project, then it's part of that project. And then what I do periodically is I'll just increase that number. So if you notice in, in 23, I had 50,000. This year I raised it to 60.
Okay,
So I'll just periodically raise that number.
so maybe
And
in
it's just-
2028 or 2027, you'll bump it up and then, okay, gotcha.
So I just kind of work that off of prices, right? So I mean, you can work around and the prices of gravel stay relatively consistent, but the cost of trucking goes up. So that's generally the increase that you'll see will be the cost for the trucking, because the gravel's been the same for a fair amount of years.
Okay,
For whatever reason, you would think their costs would go up too, because you're
Yeah.
playing with fuel and labor stuff.
Everything.
But it doesn't go up crazy, so.
okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question on that schedule too. Where's your calcium chloride? I thought there was a separate line item for that, but I
It's
don't
in
see.
the operation, so it's in the 120 fund.
Okay, because I saw the note on this one, so I thought, it's at the bottom where it says 21 miles gravel treated in calcium chloride. So I thought, oh, did you combine it with something else, or I just want to make sure we have one treatment in there. So if we do,
No,
that's fine.
So we do one treatment a year. I did raise that one as well, but that's in the 120 fund as a separate line. So if you look at the yellow page,
Okay, that's why I didn't see it, because we didn't have these until
yep.
just now.
If you look at yellow, page number 4, it's in that second, or the last row where it says road repair and maintenance. It's the second line down where it says dust control. That's calcium chloride.
Okay. And then I had one other question on Schedule G. I can't actually remember, but I thought we took out the $100,000 for the parking lot paving when we discussed that, but that's what I remember, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. But it's still in this schedule, so I'm just asking the question.
I thought we talked about just pushing it out another year, because it was in 2024, and we moved it to 2025.
Oh, okay. Is that what we decided? Okay.
And we'll decide then.
Other questions? I know it was an increase of 417, but now it's going to be a decrease of, I don't know, 300 and some odd dollars.
383.
There we go, 383.
We're going in the right direction. That's good. So,
I think there's a, on your resolution, I think there's a typo in the 2023 preliminary levy. I think it should be 4214-136. If you add those numbers up, that's what it comes to, and that matches what you have on your schedule.
So what number doesn't match?
Where it says 2023 Columbus preliminary levy, it says 4,213,319.
Oh, yeah.
But if you add the numbers up, it's 4,214,136.
So that's the total levy without the Sunrise
Yep.
watershed levy.
Yep.
So on your sheet right here, the blue,
Yeah, I can't leave in the Sunrise because that has to be in a separate,
No, the Sunrise is right. So I think, I don't know why I don't know where this number came from, but all the numbers are right except for 4,213,319. It should be 4,214,136. And if you take that plus the sunrise, it goes to 4,233,186, and it matches what you have in your summary sheet.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the formula error was that gave you the 44,213 number.
Oh, yep, 4214, I see. 4214, 136. 50.
Good catch.
Well, she caught my error in the data. I think the same one was in last year. That's the only reason I even looked at it, because I remembered that there was a weird kind of typo thing, and I thought, oh, there it is again. I think there might be just something wacko in the formula.
And the formula there.
Yeah, or it's pulling.
And it's going to change anyway, because now the general levy is 3,553,569.
That number should be that number, and then everything else is right. So 4214136 instead of 4213319. Cross this out and write this number in.
42306.
It's just a math error.
136.
Adding them up. The middle one doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't add.
Should match that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just off. But I was working with a lot of numbers.
Yep, total's the same.
All right.
Mr. Mayor and council, just for the record, I think we should just go through each of the numbers. And because you just made a change, right, with the capital improvement budget, does that roll through here? Just so the resolution and the record.
You're right, because it'll change these numbers now.
Right, so the new number for the city of Columbus general is $3,553,569. The rest of the numbers are correct, with the exception of, adding the three numbers on the top have to be added together, which I will do, and then add the $19,050, which is what we talked about for Sunrise earlier today. And so the new number is $4,232,386 as the total levy, not including the 2023 HRR EDA levy, which is $120,000.
Elizabeth, 4,232,386.
386. Is that what you got, Jim? Oh, I thought you were doing it.
I didn't add it.
You didn't do the math, okay.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Will you just go through them again? Because I didn't write them down fast enough. So the general should be 3 million what?
3,553,569, which is just subtracting $800. So originally, from the original number I have in my resolution, subtracting $800. The GO bonds remain the same. The Columbus EDA remains the same. The Sunrise WMO is still the $1,950, and then the total is $4,232,386.
But also, that number, that was the 2023 Columbus preliminary levy, should that have read 4,214,136?
Yeah, and that number is no longer correct.
Right.
The $800.
So now
Minus
changed again.
$800. Okay.
So, yep, you have to subtract $800 from that. 136. $4,213,336.
4,213,336?
Yep. one little $800 change. Every number has to be different. Okay.
There we go. Who wants to make the motion? What's the resolution number?
Number 12.
I can make that one. 12. So I move to approve Resolution 23-12, approving the Columbus 2024 preliminary levy.
I'll second the motion. Is there any other questions or discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, I.
Aye.
And Jesse, aye.
And the next motion, I move to approve the Truth in Taxation Budget and Levy discussion and hearing during our regular city council meeting on December 13th at 6 p.m. in the Columbus City Council chambers.
I'll second that.
Second.
Any other questions on the date? Anybody can't make it?
I'm looking.
That's our regular meeting.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a regular council meeting.
And that'd be fine.
I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Jesse, aye.
The last item that I have on my list has to do with the Columbus event and the business list. I updated the business list, and I'm showing you the invite that was put together for that get-together in October. I wrote down everybody's name when everyone was saying, I want this one, I want that one, et cetera, during the last meeting. And so I
good.
put now names next to everybody's, I'm sorry, I put the EDA member's name next to the list. And ones that had no name, I put Judy's name down because she wasn't here that night. And so she received the others. The ones that we did not talk about, and this is what Eleanor was working on, and I was quite surprised how many CUPs we had in the residential district. She's still working through the files. So I was able to put on the very last page the CUP business owners that we have in the residential district. So because we're working through that list, I put office on there. It doesn't mean that you couldn't talk to the home businesses that have CUPs, but we had indicated that if they had a CUP, we were going to invite them to Columbus. So I ended up putting office, and then the vacant land business owners. I don't know if you call them business owners, but they're in the business district, which in this case is John Peterson owns the property at 9218. It's at the corner on Zurich and Lake. You have business owners that are applying for businesses, but they own the property, but they don't have a permit yet. That's KI Auto Body and Hy-Vee. Lane Brothers Truck Line is being built as we speak. Brown Beagle almost has their building permit. I believe they have a pre-construction meeting next week scheduled. And then GM Columbus is a landlord in Columbus and also owns land. So that's why they were listed there. I was also asked, and I think we should have another section, because what others, like it was offered, a suggestion was, we should have the chamber, Nanette there, so I almost think we should have another category saying, okay, what invites go to that, do you want Senator Kroon there? Do you want, who do you want at this mixer that we would send invites to? You know what I mean? And I don't know, I'm just throwing things out, but I know someone mentioned the chamber.
And I think you should invite the Anoka County Economic Development guy. I can't think of his name.
Gregory,
yes.
And I would also do our senator and representative. They both live pretty close. They could run over and we could ply them with suggestions for the coming session.
Have we ever included county commissioner? If so, we could include Reinhardt.
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth, when I sent you the email of who I would do, I told you I would take on ACR because he's in my backyard. I know them. ACR,
Oh, ACR, okay,
Yep.
yep.
you can put me down for them. I know them.
And you can let them know they actually do have a valid CUP.
Yeah, yep.
My second question to all of you is, so we put this, you know what I mean, invite together, they'll be printed, this is just me printing off the, you know what I mean, off the copier, but we're going to have regular invites printed in envelopes. Is anyone uncomfortable delivering these, or you want something written, or are you okay with just indicating to them that we're having this social event and it's at Running Aces? It's going to be in the hotel part of the facility. I mean, is there anything else that you need aside from the invite?
Are we going to have anybody speaking there? I mean,
No, just speaking amongst themselves and.
no, I mean, I'm talking like we had the breakfast and we had a county road guy there.
This is
Gave
more
a
like a happy
presentation.
hour.
Huh?
This is more like a happy hour, kind of a mixer.
Like a visit.
So no thinking, just,
You can make a speech if you want.
Don't have to think at all.
no.
Yeah, we kind of wrote on the side that it was meeting your fellow business owners and more like networking. You know what I mean? That's what this forum was more about.
Do we have name tags for them, the people that show up? Are we going to have somebody out front?
Didn't we do name tags last time?
Yeah,
Do we do what?
we did name tags.
Name tags.
Yep.
Yes.
We did
Those
the, but did we do the ones for did we have ones for businesses too, or just us?
We wrote theirs out on little, hello, my name is name
oh,
tags. But I believe I collected everyone's, like, because we had the little pocket folders, right, that looked nice with this branding. I think we collected all those. I'll see if I can track them down.
I know you didn't collect Rob's because he was wearing his at Fall Fest. You'll have to ask him to bring his along.
Yeah, so I think everybody had a name tag.
They didn't have, they have names.
Hello, Rob. Did you have a comment? No, now he's on mute.
They have name
Yeah,
tags.
I can definitely bring that.
Okay.
They had name tags, but they didn't have their business on it, did they? Like
Well, you
We
can,
did.
Bob Tom Ziegler or?
I thought we did have them put their business on there.
when they're just putting their name on, write their business on too. It wouldn't hurt.
Well, if they're going to RSVP, we could actually print them out for them, right?
We could.
Then, I mean, there might be a few latecomers that can handwrite it, but I think if we're going to RSVP, we can just create name tags for them. So we've talked about different things about how, if we were going to like try to schedule a time to talk to the people when we handed this off, or are we just going to deliver them like we did last time, which at least the ones that I delivered, they pretty much went to the office manager to pass on, because those people generally
What do you
aren't.
mean schedule a time? Call them up for an appointment?
Well, it was just something we talked about before, that we were going to try to introduce ourselves. Hi, you know, I'm your contact person for, you know, from the city, and, you know, at one point we were talking about questions, and we didn't want to do questions. I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just trying to make sure that, like, last time I went to my businesses, I asked if, the person was there. None of them were there, so I ended up giving it to their office manager or their front desk person and asked them to pass it on, which is fine if that's still what the expectation is. But we talked about different things, so I'm just asking the question.
I would only ask one other question that, because we're happy to email them out and happy to email the reminder out. We just need to know who to email it to. So if you do have a name or they give you a business card or an email, well, because I know I like getting reminders 2 days or 3 days before an event. Or if you want to take that on and say, because I have the electronic copy of this, to send out, say, hey, just a reminder. I will say that when we tried to send out 10 or 12 of them, they got caught up in spam. You know what I mean? When there was more than one person, and probably you could do 2, 3, 4, but as soon as you put 10, it seemed like they got caught up in everyone's spam filters.
And are we letting them bring more than one person if they, because some of them may want to, but it doesn't say that on here, so I don't know if you want us to communicate that or.
I think you could, because we just said invite your business, so if there's others that, want to come and there isn't just one person, I think that's fine, because we'll have a big enough room to have the high top tables and the other tables, and they're not really sitting down. That's just not the way that it's being set up. But it would not be nice to know what businesses. So if we were going to do the screen like we did last time, we know who's going to be there. We can scroll the screen to do that.
So I was going to suggest that maybe, that we do utilize that screen, and, we could have the names of the businesses that scroll through. You could also grab the picture, if there's a picture on their website, or if we have pictures of them, that might be kind of nice to show the business too.
Is that, how complicated is something like that? And throw in some Fall Fest things and some,
Just a PowerPoint presentation.
Exactly, just be a PowerPoint. We would just need to get with whoever's managing that over on Running Aces side, just see if they need anything specific from us. But
Yeah.
we could also put the onus on the businesses to provide the pictures, so it wouldn't be workload on us. It would just be plopping it into PowerPoint and easy peasy.
Yeah, I think you just need a thumb drive that they plug it into.
I can't hear you.
I think you just need to do a thumb drive with that PowerPoint on there to have it show up on the screen.
Yeah, that's what we did last time, wasn't it?
It was. It's just a matter of getting the communication, whoever you're giving it to send us the the information.
Right.
Well, I was just thinking of showing some Columbus things. I was thinking differently.
Well, and I like that idea too. I think you could have, they're going to be there for 2 hours, so you could just have this endless loop of,
And Columbus things could be sprinkled in there too.
yeah.
We could go really
You have lots of
crazy.
pictures of Fall Fest you can show.
Right. And we could even go so crazy as to promote land if you wanted to in the middle. Just be like, oh, and we still have X acres available. There's a lot that we could take advantage of that space to do.
So should we ask them if they're interested to email some more pictures of
Pics,
their
logos,
stuff, whatever they want? It's free advertising.
Or their logos, at least.
Yep.
Send it to you.
Probably.
Yeah, to
That'd be
Connor,
easiest.
yep.
Well, maybe we should have a card that has all this information on there, like,
It's in the invite. That's who
could add a line
that's who they're RSVPing to.
Yep.
but I'm thinking maybe on the back side of this, is there anything on the back side of this?
No.
Okay, so maybe on the back side of this, since we're not mailing it, we could just put, please send your logo or pictures to
Yeah,
whatever.
with your
and,
RSVP.
You're welcome to bring additional staff with you, however you want to say that, and then that way we don't forget.
Jesse, did he already print them?
I don't know. I think it's printed but not cut. So it could be printed on the back. I'll find out. I'll let you know. Or maybe just to a little, if that has already been cut, just to another postcard thing with that message on it.
Or maybe we could put it like a sticker or something on the back. I don't know how that would look, but
Or even just we could just do it when they were RSVP. I could just say, hey, thanks for RSVPing. If you want, you can send some pictures and branding along. We can just do it that way if this printing doesn't.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah,
I'll find out
there we go.
if it can easily be done. Anything else on this? So when do we start door dashing? Next week? We should.
we are, it's going to be October, so now we're 3 weeks, you know what I mean, to the event. So that I figured this is the time for everyone to get out.
Well, yeah, especially if they have to RSVP by the 16th.
Yeah, that's only 2 weeks.
And we're inviting the planning commission. Somebody should tell them so they can put it on their calendar too. I think it's fine if we do. I don't think they know about it.
Do you want me to take them off?
No, I don't
No,
mind.
I think it's
don't-
good they're
yeah.
on.
I think it's fine. I just think we should make sure they know that they're invited.
They're invited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a party. Anything else, Elizabeth, on this?
I have nothing else.
Okay, we have 1 minute. Anybody who can find the mistake on this one, you get $5.
Oh, so are you saying there is a mistake
There's a
on here?
mistake.
Okay.
Quick,
On the Columbus?
on the Columbus thing. But you have to donate the $5 to the park board.
And it looks good.
Huh? Come on, come on. There's people who proofread for a living, you know.
I know, and I don't see it.
There's none of them in this group, apparently.
Can you tell me what
Or
section?
divorce is not
There's supposed to be
Is it in
another
yellow?
S on or divorce or something.
hors d'oeuvres.
Yep.
Oh,
I got it.
Da-da-da.
Where'd I leave my $5?
There we go. Oh, yeah, that's right. So there, all right. Enough silliness for tonight. So thank you, Elizabeth and Jim, for the trim and concise budget.
yes, thank you.
I know
Good
you've been
job.
working your brains out, but it's done, and it can only go down, it can't go up, right?
That's correct.
All right. So, on to letter E, announcements and reminders. Planning Commission, October 4th at 6, City Council on the 11th at 6, and the club is on October 19th, 4 to 6 p.m. And RSVP soon. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn, Janet.
This is Sue, I'll second.
I'll call for the vote.
Ron, aye.
Sue, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Jesse, aye. Our meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.